The stepfather gave his pregnant black ward to a wild Apache as punishment, watching thunder split the sky above Broken Creek trading post. Rain hammered the wooden planks where Celeste Fairweather stood in iron shackles, her belly round beneath a torn cotton dress. Barnabas Whitmore threw his cards across the table. The coins were gone. His luck had turned sour 3 hands ago. "I'm cleaned out." His voice cut through the storm. "But I got something better than coin." He dragged Celeste forward by her chains. Her bare feet slipped on wet wood. The men around the table leaned back, sensing what was coming. "She's carrying a bastard, worthless to me now." Barnabas spat into the mud. "Take her as payment for my debt." From the shadows beyond the lamplight, a figure emerged. Tall, silent. War paint streaked his cheekbones in faded red lines. His dark hair hung loose around shoulders wrapped in weathered buckskin. Gianna Crowfeather studied the woman before him. His eyes moved from her swollen belly to her trembling hands, to the defiance still burning in her gaze despite the fear. Celeste pressed closer to Barnabas, hating herself for seeking protection from her tormentor. "Please, I know about the gold you buried near Miller's Creek. Let me work off your debt instead." The words tumbled out in desperation. Her mother had died protecting that secret. Now Celeste offered it like a final card in a losing game. Barnabas backhanded her. The sound cracked sharper than thunder. "You know nothing, girl." Blood trickled from her split lip. She touched it with shaking fingers, tasting copper and defeat. "And now your Apache problem." Gianna's jaw tightened. He knew that name, Barnabas Whitmore, the man who had destroyed everything. The other gamblers shifted uncomfortably. This had gone beyond cards and coin into something darker. One man stood to leave. Another followed. "Well," Barnabas demanded, "she's young enough, strong enough. Do we have a deal?" Gianna stepped into the lamplight. Rain dripped from his black hair onto the trading post floor. His gaze never left Barnabas as he spoke. "3 horses." "What?" "I give 3 horses, you never follow." Barnabas laughed, the sound ugly in the storm. "Done. She's yours, Apache. Do what you want with her." Celeste's knees nearly buckled. Through her dress, she felt the small leather pouch her mother had sewn into the fabric. The map inside seemed to burn against her skin. Gianna moved to her side. His hands were gentle as he unlocked the shackles. The iron fell away, leaving red marks around her wrists. She looked up at him, searching his face for cruelty. Instead, she found something unreadable, careful, almost sad. He draped a thick blanket around her shoulders. It smelled of sage and wood smoke. Then he placed his hand lightly on her back, guiding her toward the door. "Wait." Celeste turned back to Barnabas. "My mother's ring." Barnabas held up his hand, showing the thin gold band on his smallest finger. "Payment for room and board all these years." The injustice of it hit her like cold rain. Everything taken, everything lost. Yana's hand pressed firmer against her back, not forcing, supporting. They walked into the storm together. His horse waited beneath a overhang, a sturdy mare with intelligent eyes. Yana helped Celeste mount, his movements efficient but not rough. He swung up behind her, one arm circling her waist to keep her steady. As they rode away from the trading post, Celeste glimpsed the war paint on the horse's flanks. Red handprints, battle symbols, her breath caught. Every story she had heard about Apache warriors flooded back. The tales of torture, of captives taken and never seen again. She was riding toward her death. The rain soaked through her dress as they traveled deeper into the wilderness. No roads here, only animal paths winding between juniper and sage. Yana rode in silence, his arm steady around her. When she shivered, he pulled his buckskin coat around them both. After an hour, he stopped near a sheltered grove and dismounted. From his saddlebags, he pulled dried meat and a water pouch. "Eat." His English was broken but gentle. "Long ride still." Celeste stared at the food. When was the last time anyone had offered her kindness? She could not remember. She ate slowly, watching him tend to the horse. His movements were precise, practiced. When he glanced her way, his expression held no malice. "You safe now," he said quietly. "No harm come to child." The words made no sense. She was his captive, his property traded like livestock. Yet something in his voice made her believe him. They rode through the night, stopping only when the horse needed rest. As dawn painted the eastern sky pale gold, Celeste saw smoke rising ahead. The Apache camp, her new prison, or perhaps something else entirely. Yana felt her stiffen against him as they approached the cooking fires. He understood her fear. White settlers told many stories about his people. Most were lies, but she would learn the truth soon enough. He thought of his brother, of promises broken and blood spilled, of debts that could never be fully paid. Barnabas Whitmore had no idea what he had just done. Justice moved in strange ways sometimes. The Apache camp spread before them in the morning light, nothing like the war party Celeste had imagined. Children chased each other between hide shelters. Women tended cooking fires while men worked on weapons and tools. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. Xiana dismounted and helped her down. Her legs trembled from the long ride. The baby kicked inside her, responding to her anxiety. An elderly woman approached, her gray hair braided with beads. Lines mapped her weathered face, each one telling stories of survival. She spoke to Ayana in rapid Apache, gesturing toward Celeste. "Grandmother Singing Bird," Ayana said. "She is healer. Help with child." The old woman's hands were warm as she examined Celeste's belly. Her touch was professional, gentle. She spoke again to Ayana. "She says baby comes soon, maybe 2 moons." He translated carefully. "You need rest. Good food." Celeste found her voice. "What happens to me here?" Yana studied her face. "You safe, that is all." But safety was a word that had lost meaning for her long ago. Grandmother Singing Bird led them to a shelter at the camp's edge. Inside, buffalo hides covered the ground. Woven baskets lined the walls. A fire pit waited in the center. The old woman brought water and soft rabbit fur for washing. She chattered to Ayana while preparing herbs, her tone motherly despite the foreign words. "She makes tea," he explained, "for baby's health." Celeste sank onto the soft hides, exhaustion claiming her. When had anyone cared for her health? The question hung in the air between them. Yana built up the fire while Grandmother Singing Bird brewed her tea. The smoke carried the scent of sage and something else. Something that made Celeste's tight shoulders relax despite herself. Days passed in careful routine. Ayana brought her meals and checked her well-being. His hands knew healing, she discovered. When her back ached, he showed her stretches. When her feet swelled, he prepared soaking herbs. "You medicine man?" she asked one evening. He nodded toward where Grandmother Singing Bird ground roots by firelight. "Learning. She teaches old ways." The admission surprised her. White settlers spoke of Apache warriors, not healers. Another lie, perhaps, or another truth she had never heard. In return, she began teaching him English words. He struggled with some sounds, his tongue shaped by different rhythms. But he learned quickly. "What this mean?" He pointed to scratches she had made in the dirt. "Letters, they make words on paper." His eyes widened. "You show me more." She drew simple words in the dust. "Cat, dog, horse." He repeated them carefully, memorizing each shape. Other tribal members watched these exchanges with varying degrees of suspicion. Some nodded politely. Others whispered among themselves when they thought she could not see. One young warrior made his disapproval clear. "Running wolf," Ayana called him. He spat in the dirt when Celeste passed and muttered words she did not need translated. "He thinks I bring trouble," she said. Ayana's jaw tightened. "He thinks many things, most wrong." But doubt crept in during the quiet hours. What did Ayana truly want from her? Why go through this elaborate kindness? The answer came partially one afternoon when traders visited the camp. She heard them speaking with Ayana about horses, about payment made to Barnabas. 3 horses, not a purchase price, she realized, protection money. "You paid him so he would not follow me." Ayana looked up from the arrowheads he was shaping. "Yes, why?" He was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Finally, he set down his tools. "Bad man should not hurt you more." The simple truth of it made her chest tight. When had anyone protected her from anything? She watched him work, noting the careful precision of his hands. The same hands that had unlocked her shackles, that brought her food and medicine, that asked nothing in return, almost nothing. His questions about her past were subtle but persistent, about Barnabas, about what she knew of his business, about the places she had lived. Innocent curiosity, perhaps, or something more calculated. The leather pouch sewn into her dress seemed to grow heavier each day, her mother's final gift, her final burden. One evening, as he carved a cradle from pine wood, she made a decision. "Why do you ask about Barnabas?" His knife stilled against the wood. "He is bad man. I want to understand his badness. There are different kinds of badness." "Yes," she traced patterns in the dirt with her finger. "Some steal, some lie, some kill. And Barnabas, all of these things." Yana resumed carving, but his movements had changed. Grown more deliberate, the cradle took shape under his hands, smooth and perfect. "This is for your child," he said. "Not her child, your child." The distinction made her breath catch. Celeste touched her belly where the baby moved restlessly. "Why are you kind to me? Why should I not be?" Because she was property. Because she was pregnant with another man's child. Because kindness was a luxury she had never been able to afford. Instead, she said, "I do not know." The fire crackled between them. Somewhere in the camp, someone played a wooden flute. The melody was haunting, beautiful, nothing like the harsh songs she remembered from her old life. "I think I am falling in love with you," she whispered to the flames. If he heard, he gave no sign. But his hands gentled on the cradle, and she thought she saw his shoulders ease. The next morning brought trouble in the form of dust clouds on the horizon, riders approaching fast. Iyana shaded his eyes against the sun, tension radiating from his frame. "Soldiers? Maybe." Running Wolf appeared at his side, speaking rapid Apache. Whatever he said made Ayana's expression darken. "What is it?" "Someone comes looking for you." The peaceful sanctuary she had begun to trust crumbled around her. Safety was indeed a word without meaning. She pressed her hand to the hidden pouch and felt the map's edges through the fabric. Her mother's voice echoed across the years. "Keep this safe, child. It may be your only protection when everything else fails." The riders grew closer, their horses kicking up red dust that stained the morning sky. The riders turned out to be traders, not soldiers, but their news chilled the morning air. Army scouts were asking questions in the settlements, about stolen gold, about a missing pregnant woman. Celeste felt the walls of her sanctuary crumble stone by stone. That evening, she overheard Ayana speaking with Grandmother Singing Bird in hushed Apache. Their voices carried the weight of serious discussion. Running Wolf stood nearby, his expression dark with satisfaction. She approached slowly, the baby heavy in her belly. Running Wolf noticed her first and spoke in mocking English. "He tells Grandmother that the black woman surely knows of the white devil's hidden treasure." His smile was cruel. "He says she will reveal it when she trusts him completely." The words hit her harder than Barnabas's hand ever had. Celeste stared at Ayana, waiting for him to deny it, to explain. Instead, he looked away, guilt written in the line of his shoulders. "Is this true?" His silence was answer enough. She walked back to her shelter on unsteady legs. Behind her, she heard Grandmother Singing Bird scolding Running Wolf in rapid Apache. But the damage was done. Everything made sense now. The careful questions about Barnabas, the interest in her past, the protection and kindness that had seemed too good to be true, because it was. Her fingers found the hidden pouch through her dress. The map her mother had died protecting. The treasure Barnabas had killed for. Now Ayana wanted it too. She had been traded from one captor to another. The chains were softer here, woven from kindness and false affection, but chains nonetheless. That night she lay on the buffalo hide and stared at the smoke hole above. Stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. The baby moved restlessly, sensing her distress. She could run, should run. But where? Her belly made travel difficult, and winter was coming to the high country. She would die alone in the wilderness and her child with her. Better to stay and guard her secrets. Better to wait for a real chance at freedom. When Ayana brought her morning meal, she barely looked at him. "You are sick." "No." He knelt beside her, concern creasing his brow. "Baby comes too soon. The baby is fine." But everything else was broken. The trust she had allowed to grow, the love she had been fool enough to feel. Yana reached for her hand. She pulled away. "Celeste." The sound of her name on his lips hurt worse than running Wolf's revelation. She had taught him to say it properly, had felt something warm kindle in her chest each time he spoke it. Another lie she had told herself. "I am tired," she said. "Please leave me alone." He hesitated, then set the food beside her and walked away. She heard him speaking with grandmother Singingbird outside, their voices low and urgent. Days passed in careful distance. Yana continued bringing meals and checking her health, but the easy companionship was gone. She answered his questions with single words, turned away when he tried to catch her eye. The cradle he had carved sat in the corner, half finished. He no longer worked on it in her presence. Running Wolf watched these changes with obvious pleasure. When she passed him by the cooking fires, he would mutter comments that made the other women frown and turn away. "He says you bring bad spirits," a young woman named Gentle Rain translated quietly. "That soldiers will come and people will die because of you." The words echoed Celeste's own fears. Maybe she was cursed. Maybe everyone who tried to help her was doomed to destruction. Her mother certainly had been. One afternoon, while gathering herbs with grandmother Singingbird, she made a decision. The old woman's hands were patient as she showed Celeste which plants held healing power. Her touch was kind despite the language barrier. Real kindness, Celeste thought, not calculated like everything else. "I need to leave," she said, knowing the words would not be understood but needing to say them anyway. Grandmother Singingbird looked up from the roots she was examining. Her dark eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Iyana," she said carefully, then a string of Apache that sounded like a question. Celeste shook her head. "I cannot trust him." The old woman studied her face for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her own medicine pouch and pulled out a small piece of folded paper. White man's paper, with English writing. Celeste's heart stopped. Grandmother Singingbird pressed the paper into her hands and spoke a single word in English. "Brother." With trembling fingers, Celeste unfolded the letter. The handwriting was crude but readable. "Barnabas promises good money for winter supplies. Says the gold is payment from army for land deals. I believe him because our people are hungry. We'll bring horses back in 3 days. Tell Ayana not to worry." It was signed with an X and the name Joseph Crowfeather. Celeste looked up at grandmother Singingbird, understanding flooding through her. The old woman nodded sadly and spoke more Apache, her tone heavy with grief. "She says Joseph never came back," Gentle Rain translated quietly, having followed them from camp. "Barnabas told the soldiers Joseph stole the gold. They shot him trying to run." The paper crumpled in Celeste's fist. Ayana's brother, dead because of Barnabas's lies, dead because of the same gold whose map she carried sewn into her dress. "She says Ayana has been searching for justice for 2 years, Gentle Rain continued. "When he heard Barnabas had a woman, he thought she might know the truth. Not the treasure, the truth." Celeste sank to her knees in the dusty earth. Everything she had believed about Ayana's motives crumbled around her. The careful questions had not been about gold. They had been about justice for a murdered brother, and she had condemned him without listening. Thunder rumbled overhead, though no clouds marked the sky. The sound came from horses, many horses. Running Wolf appeared at the top of the ridge, his face grim. He called down to them in Apache, pointing toward the valley. Gentle Rain paled. "Soldiers, coming fast." Behind the soldiers rode 2 other men. Even at a distance, Celeste recognized one of them, Thomas Weatherby, the pastor's son, the father of her child. Her past had finally caught up with her. Grandmother Singingbird gripped her arm and spoke urgently. Gentle Rain translated. "She says you must choose now, trust or run. There is no more time for doubt." The horses grew closer, dust clouds marking their approach. In minutes they would reach the camp. Celeste pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the baby kick. Her child's future hung in the balance of this moment. Trust the man who had saved her from Barnabas, or trust the one who had put her in Barnabas's power. The choice should have been simple, but trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. Celeste ran back to her shelter and pulled the hidden map from its place sewn into her dress. The leather crackled in her hands, brittle with age and her mother's blood. She found Ayana by the horse corral, watching the approaching dust cloud. His face was stone, but his hands betrayed him. They trembled as he checked his rifle. "Here." She thrust the map toward him. "This is what you want, is it not? The gold Barnabas stole." Yana stared at the folded leather. Then he did something that shattered her remaining defenses. He took the map and threw it into the nearest fire. The flames caught the edges first, then consumed the center. Years of her mother's sacrifice curled into ash and smoke. "Why?" The word came out broken. Yana's eyes held depths of pain she had never noticed before. He spoke to grandmother Singing Bird in rapid Apache. The old woman nodded and began translating in her careful English. "He says his brother died getting that gold for Barnabas. The white man promised fair payment for helping move army supplies. Joseph believed the gold was honest trade money." The fire crackled between them, consuming the last traces of the map. When Joseph learned the truth, he tried to return the gold. Barnabas shot him and told the soldiers Joseph was a thief. Grandmother Singing Bird's voice grew heavy. Iana found his brother's body 3 days later. Buzzards had been at it. Celeste pressed her hand to her mouth. The weight of understanding crushed down on her. "He did not want your treasure," the old woman continued. "He wanted to know if you were another victim or another accomplice. And now," Yana spoke again, his words soft in the Apache tongue, "now he knows you suffered as his brother suffered, under the same evil man." The approaching horses grew louder. Celeste could make out individual riders now, blue uniforms, brass buttons catching sunlight, and Thomas Weatherby on his bay mare, his golden hair bright under his hat. "I am sorry," she whispered to Ayana. "I thought you wanted to use me. Everyone wants to use you." His English was careful but clear. "I wanted to protect you." The simple truth of it broke something inside her chest. When had anyone wanted to protect her without asking for payment? "The soldiers will take me back. Not if you do not wish to go." But wishes were luxuries, and soldiers carried authority that transcended desire. The riders crested the final hill and rode into the Apache camp with dust swirling around their horses' hooves. The sergeant was a weathered man with kind eyes and tired shoulders. Behind him came 6 troopers and Thomas Weatherby. Thomas looked exactly as she remembered. Handsome in the way that made women trust him, weak in the way that made him dangerous when cornered. The sergeant dismounted and approached Ayana with careful respect. "I am Sergeant McKinnon. We are looking for a missing woman, Celeste Fairweather." Yana gestured toward where she stood beside the dying fire. "She is here." Thomas pushed forward before the sergeant could speak. "Celeste, thank God you are safe." His voice carried relief and something else, something that made her skin crawl. "Mr. Weatherby claims you are carrying his child," Sergeant McKinnon said. "He has come to take you back to proper society." Proper society. The words tasted bitter. "You mean back to Barnabas Whitmore?" Thomas dismounted and approached slowly as if she were a spooked horse. "Barnabas is gone, my dear. Left town after some trouble with debts. You will live with my family now. Our child will have my name." Behind his words lay the real message. The map, the gold, the treasure that could buy him everything he had ever wanted. "What if I choose to stay here?" Thomas's smile faltered. "You cannot be serious. These are savages, Celeste. You belong with civilized people." Iana's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Around the camp, Apache families watched the confrontation with wary eyes. "They have treated me with more kindness than any civilized person ever has," she said. "You are not thinking clearly." Thomas moved closer. "The child you carry needs proper medical care, education, a future." Sergeant McKinnon studied the exchange with growing unease. "Ma'am, the choice is yours, but Mr. Weatherby has legal standing as the father." Legal standing. Another chain disguised as protection. Pain shot through her belly, sharp and sudden. She doubled over, gasping. Grandmother Singing Bird was at her side instantly, hands gentle on her back. She spoke urgently to Ayana. "The baby comes," he translated. "Now," Thomas went pale. "We need to get her to a real doctor." "Too late," Grandmother Singing Bird said in her broken English. "Baby comes now." Another pain gripped Celeste, stronger than the first. Her water broke, soaking the ground beneath her feet. The sergeant stepped back, clearly out of his depth. "Maybe we should wait." "No," Thomas's voice turned sharp. "She comes with us. Today." But Celeste was already being helped toward her shelter by Grandmother Singing Bird and two other women. The pains were coming faster now, driven by stress and fear. As she passed Ayana, their eyes met. In his gaze, she saw everything she had been too afraid to trust. Protection without possession. Love without demands. "Stay with me," she whispered. He nodded and followed her into the shelter, leaving Thomas standing in the dust with his legal claims and empty promises. Outside, she could hear the sergeant trying to maintain order while Thomas demanded immediate action. But inside the shelter, all that mattered was the life struggling to enter a world torn between two peoples. Grandmother Singing Bird prepared her medicines while Iana held Celeste's hand. His touch was steady, undemanding. "Whatever happens," she said between contractions, "do not let him take my child. I will not let anyone take what is precious to you." The promise settled around her heart like armor. For the first time in months, she felt truly safe. Even as Thomas's voice rose outside, demanding his rights as a father. Even as the sergeant spoke of legal obligations and proper procedures. Even as her body prepared to bring new life into a world that might tear it away from her. She gripped Ayana's hand and pushed toward whatever future awaited them all. The baby came as the sun reached its highest point, born into chaos with a strong cry that cut through the shouting outside. Celeste held her daughter against her chest, counting tiny fingers and toes while Grandmother Singing Bird cleaned and prepared the birthing space. Yana sat beside them, his face soft with wonder. "She is beautiful. She is free," Celeste whispered. "That is more beautiful than anything." But freedom was fragile. Outside, Thomas's voice grew more demanding by the hour. "That is my child in there. I have rights." Sergeant McKinnon's response was patient but firm. "The mother needs rest, Mr. Weatherby. We will discuss this when she is recovered." Through the shelter walls, Celeste could hear Ayana's people moving with quiet purpose. Children were being gathered, horses prepared. They knew what soldiers could mean, even peaceful ones. When Grandmother Singing Bird finally allowed visitors, Thomas pushed through the entrance first. His eyes went immediately to the baby, calculating and hungry. "My daughter," he said, reaching for the infant. Celeste pulled her child closer. "She is no one's property. I can give her everything: education, respectability, a place in proper society. The same society that traded me for gambling debts." Thomas's mask slipped for a moment. "That was different. Barnabas was desperate. He made poor choices. And you? What is your excuse?" He knelt beside her, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was a loving whisper. "I know about the map, Celeste. Your mother told me about it before she died. We could use that gold to build a life together. A real family." So there it was, the truth beneath his pretty words. "The map is gone. Gone, burned." Thomas's face went white. "You cannot be serious." "Ask the Apache if I am serious." He looked around wildly, as if the ashes might somehow be gathered and the map restored. When he realized she was telling the truth, his expression hardened. "Then you will come with me anyway. The child needs a father." "The child has a father." Yana stepped forward from where he had been standing quietly in the shadows. "I will raise her as my own." "You," Thomas laughed, the sound ugly in the small space. "A savage raising a white man's child. A good man raising a child who needs love." The difference in their words revealed everything. Thomas spoke of possession. Iana spoke of devotion. Sergeant McKinnon appeared in the doorway. "Ma'am, I need to know your decision. Will you come voluntarily or must I compel you?" "You would take a woman and newborn by force." The sergeant's discomfort showed in his shifting stance. "I have orders to return you to proper custody. Mr. Weatherby has filed legal papers." Legal papers. Celeste looked down at her sleeping daughter. "What law says a mother cannot choose who raises her child? The law says the father has rights. Then the law is wrong." Through the entrance, she could see Barnabas riding into the camp with two rough-looking men flanking him. Her blood turned to ice water. "Sergeant," Barnabas called out, "I hear you found my property." "She is not your property," Thomas snapped. "She is coming with me." Barnabas dismounted slowly, his eyes fixed on the shelter where Celeste hid. "She is a runaway slave, and I have papers to prove it." The words hit the assembled soldiers with visible impact. Sergeant McKinnon's expression darkened. "Sir, slavery is illegal in this territory." "Check your law books, Sergeant. She was legally bound to me before coming here. That makes her theft of herself a crime." Celeste's heart hammered against her ribs. Even in freedom, the past could reach out with legal chains. But then Ayanna spoke, his voice carrying clearly across the camp. "She tells truth about you, Barnabas Whitmore, about gold you steal, about my brother you murder." Barnabas went very still. "Your brother was a thief." "My brother was Joseph Crowfeather. You promise him honest work moving army supplies. You give him stolen gold to hide. When he learned truth and tried to return it, you shoot him." Sergeant McKinnon looked between the two men. "That is a serious accusation." "He has no proof," Barnabas said, but sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. Yana reached into his shirt and pulled out a folded paper. Joseph's letter, the one grandmother singing bird had shown Celeste. "My brother write this before he die. Says you promise the gold is payment from army for land deals." The sergeant took the letter and read it carefully. His expression grew progressively grimmer. "Mr. Whitmore, this letter suggests you misrepresented the nature of your business arrangement. Letters can be forged, perhaps, but it gives me reason to investigate further before returning anyone to your custody." Thomas stepped forward, sensing an opportunity. "Then she comes with me. I can protect her while you sort this out." "I choose to stay here," Celeste said clearly, "with people who have shown me genuine kindness." "You cannot stay with savages," Thomas protested. "I can stay with family." Iana moved to her side, his presence solid and reassuring. Around the camp, his people watched with quiet dignity, their very stillness a rebuke to the chaos the white men had brought. Sergeant McKinnon studied the scene with weary eyes. He had seen enough of the frontier to know that legal right and moral right did not always align. "Ma'am, you say these people are family to you, more family than I have ever known, and you choose to remain here of your own free will." "I do." The sergeant nodded slowly. "Then I see no immediate cause to compel you otherwise. Mr. Weatherby, Mr. Whitmore, you will need to settle your competing claims through proper legal channels." Thomas's face flushed red. "This is outrageous. You cannot leave a white woman with these people." "I can leave a free woman where she chooses to be." Barnabas spat in the dust. "This is not over." "No," Iana said quietly. "It is not over. You will answer for my brother's death." But for now the immediate danger had passed. The soldiers would ride away. The legal battles would take time, and in that time Celeste could heal and plan and decide her true future. She looked down at her daughter, born free in an Apache camp, claimed by love rather than law. Perhaps that was the beginning of something better than anything the white world could offer. 6 months later, autumn painted the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Celeste sat beneath a cottonwood tree, watching her daughter Hope crawl through fallen leaves while Apache children played nearby. The baby had grown strong under grandmother Singing Bird's care. Her skin bore the warmth of both her parents, her eyes dark and curious. She babbled in sounds that might become Apache or English or something entirely new. Yana approached carrying his medicine bag and a leather pouch of herbs. His morning had been spent treating a settler's infected wound, payment made in flour and coffee beans. "Mrs. Henderson says her husband's arm heals well," he said, settling beside them on the blanket. "Good. Maybe others will see that healing has no color. It had taken months to build this fragile bridge between worlds. Some settlers remained suspicious, crossing themselves when Iana passed. Others had learned to value his knowledge over their prejudice. Celeste had become the translator between communities. Her ability to read and write opened doors that Apache oral tradition could not. Together, they had negotiated fair trades that benefited both peoples. The legal troubles had resolved slowly. Sergeant McKinnon's investigation had uncovered evidence of Barnabas's crimes. The stolen gold was found buried near Miller's Creek, exactly where her mother's map had indicated. Barnabas now sat in a territorial prison, his claims on Celeste dissolved by his own criminality. Thomas had pressed his case through lawyers and courts, but without the gold to finance his ambitions, his interest had waned. He eventually married a merchant's daughter in Denver, seeking easier wealth through family connections. The Freedom Papers had come through government channels, signed by a territorial judge who recognized that justice sometimes required mercy. Celeste was officially free, her daughter officially hers. Running Wolf asks if you will teach his son to read, Iana said. Celeste looked up in surprise. Running Wolf had been her fiercest critic, the one who had exposed Iana's questions about the treasure. He wants his son to learn English. He says the white world grows stronger every year. His son will need their words to protect our people. Change moved through the territory with the persistence of seasons. More settlers arrived weekly. Towns grew around mining claims and railroad stops. The Apache had to adapt or be swept aside. I will teach any child who wants to learn, she said. Hope pulled herself up against Iana's knee, gurgling with delight when he lifted her onto his lap. She had begun calling him Papa in her mixture of languages, the word carrying more truth than any legal document. She looks more like you each day, Celeste observed. She looks like herself. That is enough. A rider appeared on the horizon, dust marking his approach. Celeste tensed automatically. Visitors still brought the possibility of trouble, but this rider wore the blue uniform of a cavalry scout and his approach was unhurried. When he reached their camp, he dismounted respectfully. I am looking for Celeste Fairweather and Iana Crowfeather. You found us, Iana said, his hand moving protectively to Hope's back. The scout pulled a sealed envelope from his saddlebag. This comes from the Indian Agency, official business. Celeste's heart hammered as she broke the seal and read the formal language within. Government words about land rights and tribal recognition, legal terminology that usually meant loss and displacement, but these words were different. They want us to establish a school, she said slowly. Official funding for Apache children to learn English and arithmetic, with traditional healing practices included in the teaching. Jana read over her shoulder, his English now strong enough to navigate the bureaucratic language. They offer payment, enough to live on, enough to build something lasting. It was recognition of what they had already begun. The morning classes beneath the cottonwood tree, the healing garden where Apache herbs grew beside European vegetables, the cultural exchange that had started with desperation and grown into hope. What do you think? She asked. Iana considered the offer with the same care he brought to mixing medicines. My people need to learn new ways to survive. Your people need to learn old ways to heal. Maybe both can happen in same place. That evening, they sat by the fire with grandmother Singing Bird and discussed the future. The old woman had seen decades of change, watching her people struggle to maintain their identity while adapting to new realities. The children must know both worlds, she said in her careful English. They must walk in balance. Hope slept peacefully in Celeste's arms, unaware that her future was being planned around concepts of justice and education and cultural survival. She was simply a child loved by a community that had chosen to become family. As stars emerged overhead, Celeste felt a deep satisfaction settle in her chest. Not happiness exactly, but something more durable. Purpose. Belonging. The knowledge that her daughter would grow up free in ways that Celeste herself had never imagined possible. Iana's hand found hers in the darkness. Calloused from work, warm with life, steady with commitment. He had kept his promise to protect what was precious to her. In return, she had given him a reason to build rather than simply survive. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and wood smoke, of autumn's ending and winter's approach. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new negotiations between worlds that still viewed each other with suspicion. But tonight, they had peace. They had love. They had hope sleeping soundly in a cradle carved from pine wood, dreaming dreams that belonged to no single people but to the future itself. Around them, the Apache camp settled into evening quiet. Children called good night to parents. Fires banked to glowing coals. The sound of a wooden flute carried ancient melodies into modern darkness. And in the space between one world and another, a family had taken root and grown strong enough to weather whatever storms might come. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.